Short people problems.
We all got problems. Right, there we go. Right. Hi there, folks. It's another interview at WordCamp 2022. We've got Nev Harris with us. He's agreed to be my next victim. He's very happy about it. So, Nev, can you give us a bit background about yourself and how you got involved with WordPress?
Sure. So I had a direct mail magazine and I had a really talented designer, and I figured, and I was doing marketing strategy on the side. I figured, so why don't we just do the whole gambit? Why don't we just do the websites and everything like that? How hard could it be, right? That's what we figured. Famous last words. And then, I ran that agency for 8 years, kind of got burned out on it, and then wanted something different. But my background being that I wasn't design or development was finance and entrepreneurship. So I was doing, helping some of my friends who were so helpful with me on the WordPress side to understand their money and how it plays into their business. And so I just started a business around that. And then when COVID happened, it really took off.
All right. So by going by your LinkedIn and your website, you basically advise people about, well, you put it in your own words. What do you think is the essence of what you offer?
I help them find the hidden profit in their business.
Yeah, that was the phrase I was struggling with. It's your catchphrase, isn't it?
Yeah. So Chris Lemon told me that. He's like, you just help people find the hidden profit in your business. I'm like, dude, I love that. And so it stuck.
So where, for you to offer that, why do you think a lot of people struggle with that particular subject?
Well, I have strong opinions on this. I feel that the language surrounding accounting hasn't changed in 100 years. And it's, I think, nearly designed to just confuse the hell out of us mere mortals who aren't like accountants or financial planners. And so I just try to simplify it for them because it doesn't have to be confusing. It doesn't you don't have to be a CFO. It doesn't have to take hours and hours and hours to get insight into your money. And so that's just how this all started up. So I have simple processes to work through that 5 minutes a day. You understand your money.
Do you, I've been in business since I was 23.
Fantastic.
It's not always been fantastic.
Is it ever always fantastic?
No, that would be impossible. But reflecting back, I think one of the factors is it's always, not always, but it's always possible to get new clients and that. But understanding of controlling costs.
Yes.
It's not so glamorous as good. So a lot of people get the work in, but it's like a leaky bucket. There's always costs involved in their business, but having some control over them is another cup of tea. Would you agree with that basic statement?
Oh, that's the foundation of what I preach. It's just you have to understand your cost, because if you don't understand your cost, you can't price right, and if you can't price right, you can't profit consistently, and if you can't profit consistently, then you can't take care of more clients. You can't grow your team, take better care of your team. You can't provide for your family. You can't secure retirement. It all starts with understanding your cost, because it builds on top of all that.
I would say I've done it, and I would say the majority of people do it. But I'm going to put that to you and get your comment. Is that they, in agency work or SaaS or digital products or services, they tend to look at the competition. And if the prices are out there, they look at the price structure, and then they price similar to the competitors. What are some of the problems with actually doing that, rather than doing that, but also looking at the cost structure as well? What are some of the problems might be in just charging what your competitors seem to be charging?
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. So,
please do. I like the stories.
All right. So, Microsoft came out with a music player called the Zune. Apple came out with their iPod, and then well, the chief product officer for Apple was being interviewed, and he said, and he was asked, he says, Zune has this feature and this feature and this feature, and he says, and his response was, I know, and that was it. That was his, because Apple, and this consultant, and he was in both. He consulted for both Microsoft and Apple. He says Apple was always focused on making a better product for the user. Okay, Microsoft was focused on keeping up with Apple. So nobody has a Zoom. Microsoft doesn't even make phones anymore. And Apple's like the company we know it is. Now, Microsoft has done some great things in the cloud and everything since then. But it says that we shouldn't focus on our customer because, our competitors. We should be aware of them, but if we focus on them, we're missing some things because they might have some inherent advantages that we don't have. We might have some inherent advantages that they don't have, and we're just not playing to any of that kind of stuff. So I think you shouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't. Be aware what your competitor does, but focus on making things better for your customers, and do that by focusing on what you do best and understanding your cost structure so that you could provide that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good example of that, because you are presuming in the price structure, if you just copy what the industry is doing and what you see as your main competitors charging, you are presuming that they have some deep understanding about what they're charging. It's not always the case, is it?
No. And like, I love the streaming business. I find it cable streaming. I find it all fascinating. So you look at things like Apple TV or Disney prices. They decided that they're going to lose billions of dollars for the first 5 years pricing it the way they priced it. But what did they have? They had the whole backing of Disney, of ABC, of all those companies that they could afford that. Amazon bakes their Amazon Prime streaming service into the price of Amazon Prime because they want to get people in to buy stuff on Amazon. So if you're starting a streaming service and you don't understand all this, you're done. And so, because your cost, you'll never be able to price right because you don't understand why they're pricing the way they're pricing.
When it comes to agencies, because would I be correct, not exclusively, but do you ever kind of focus on agencies, on digital agencies?
Yes, yeah, I focus on.
When it comes to, there's such a spectrum of different pricing depending on where in the food chain, where the framing, where the agency is seen. Is it seen as the in agency or one of the leading agencies? It seems to be around a lot of it, obviously technical ability and technical to do the job to some standard, but it also seems a lot of it seems to be smoke and mirrors to some extent. Is there any truth in what I'm saying, and what's your own view of all that?
I think, so you could say it's smoke and mirrors. I would say it's confidence. I would say it's because you're right. There's, unless you're doing some super advanced WooCommerce stuff or you're doing some really crazy integrations. Excuse me. But if like the technical level you need to do to build a $10,000 website is not different than the $2,000 website. It's just a person that priced it at $10,000 had the confidence to price it at $10,000 versus the person who priced it at $2,000. And they probably were like niched down and focused a little bit more, so they were more of a specialist than a generalist. But and the really crazy thing about that, the really crazy thing is the competition around the $2,000 level is massive. $1,000 website, $2,000 website, massive competition. Everybody's there because they're scared of not getting their business. So, but 10,000, how many people do you know that are actually selling $10,000 websites? Not many. So the competition for those type of websites are a lot fewer.
Well, is it true though that a website that seemed to make money for the business, as the business grows and their digital assets become more and more important, that they're looking for competence? I would say both sectors are looking for competence, but they're looking for non-failure a lot more. You know, where the cheaper 2000 site, they're looking to get the most value out of the provider. Each dollar is really very, very important. Where the 10,000, it's more value, but also competence and guarantee of lack of failure.
Yes, I would.
I haven't explained that very well, have I? I haven't utilised the right words. Hopefully you're going to do a much better job than that, because I did do a very good job there, did I?
No. Well, I see what you're saying. And I'll tell you. I'll tell you where. Like, if you're selling a website for $1,000 or $2,000 to somebody, you know, and that's a stretch for them to pay for that, they're gonna fuss over every little thing, because they're gonna argue over something that's $20. You know, and it's not worth your time to argue over something that's worth $20. You do a $10,000 website, like the person who can afford a $10,000 website, it's not worth their time to go and argue over little things. They're much more big picture focused, and they're not gonna, you know, if they're being paid, or if they're making $200-300 an hour, they're not going to spend an hour of their time arguing over something that's $30. You know, like if so, it's just so it makes it easier to work on websites that are more expensive. Now, from the other side, I think you were saying is it's the confidence that, you know, and I agree with you completely on this, that people, when they're paying more for a website, they're also paying more for the fact that there's going to be less hassle involved in getting that website done. Because everybody knows you can go to Upwork and find somebody to build a website for $200, but it's going to be a disaster, and you're going to have to spend like tons of your time working with that person, versus you hire somebody that for $10,000, they have a process you go through, they do it, you get a website back, you don't have to worry about it. So you're buying, like, as I think we were hinting at, you're buying assurance.
Well, isn't this saying that no IT manager ever got sacked for hiring IBM?
Yeah, I love that. Or no marketing manager ever got fired for buying a Super Bowl commercial. Yeah, you know, because it's the known commodity and everything like that.
And they're looking to be able, if it does fail, well, we did the right thing, the process. They had a good track record. They can defend, even if they tried somebody that was a bit out there, it's not defendable, their position, if things do go wrong.
Yeah. And I'll tell you another one. I will offend anybody that works for a big consulting firm, but but they bring in like Booz Allen and McKinsey and all these like Ivy League consulting firms, the CEOs do, and they pay them hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars just so the CEO can say, when the board says, why the hell did you do that? Well, McKinsey said it was the right thing to do. So that's their whole business model, to provide the CYA, the CEO.
You got to cover your tracks.
Yeah.
Go watch, especially the more, because I've got a very diverse, because I'm an agency owner, I've got a very diverse customer. I've gone into the kind of quasi-agency SaaS model, where I'm providing a productized service to the smaller clients, but we offer more agency based, and I've got some Fortune 500 clients, and I've got some medium clients, and I've got a lot of small clients, and I think it's a good blend. But the different requirements and the different mindset that you need has been education. I'm 58 now, and over the past 10 years I've learned what the total difference in mindset and what the client is looking for, depending where they are in that landscape, basically.
And it depends what matters to that client. It's because when you're dealing with a small business, when you're dealing with a smaller client, you're normally dealing with the guy that's taking money out of his pocket, or the girl that's taking money out of his pocket to give to you. Okay, so he cares like ROI. How is this going to value? But when you're dealing with, it goes back to that thing about hiring IBM. When you're dealing with a marketing manager or something like that, their concern is not maximizing the ROI for this. Their concern is not getting fired for making this decision. So, and also, how can I maximize my time? So, it's funny, like, Southwest. So Southwest got into a pricing war, and they understood this concept really, really well. And when Southwest almost was put out of business for this, their biggest competitor, when they were first starting out, decided to do it. They could afford to take the loss, so they cut Southwest fare in half. So they were charging $13 for a flight, and Southwest was charging 26. And Southwest said, if we drop to 13, we will be out of business. We were barely hanging on. This was Southwest was just beginning. They said, but you know what? These are businessmen flying on expense account. I don't think they want to save $13. So what Southwest did is, he says, what do they want to do? They want to drink. And so Southwest so Southwest said, they ran an ad that said, we will sell you a $13 ticket. We will match this price, but we will also sell you a $26 ticket and give you a fifth of Chivas Regal. And you know what? It was like 90% of people picked the more expensive ticket with the cheap bottle of Chivas Regal because it was on their expense account. So they didn't care if it was 13 or 26. They cared 26, and I got my bottle of booze. So it was a better deal for them.
So what brings you to WordCamp 2022 then? What do you hope to get out of this apart from meeting a few interesting people?
Yeah.
I suppose it's a load of agencies being here, which are your customer base to some extent.
Oh yeah, I'm 100%. But for me, I love the WordPress community. I mean, and I truly, truly do. I mean, some of my best friends have come out of this, and so getting to just go to any WordCamp where I get to hang out with like my friends is worth the price of admission. So yeah, I just get to network, get to see people. I mean, I just find it so motivating and uplifting to just be talking to meeting somebody like you for the first time who I watched a tutorial video. I forget which one it was, but I was deciding on a plugin, and this goes back years, and I watched a tutorial video you did on it. Oh, so when you sent me
you're doomed then. You're doomed. Don't blame me for that was a mistake in its own right. Watching one of my bloody videos.
It might have been something, I forget what it was, but yeah, it was. But it's just you see these people. I mean, on the post out of Slack a lot. Just getting to put a name to a face.
I'm so horrible to the post status Slack channel. I am awful to. I feel guilty about it actually. My English sarcasm, right?
Yeah. I know I'm the same way. I hate typing, so it's just so I don't participate I don't comment on as much as I would like because I was like, okay, Neb, you do not have an hour to answer to reply to that.
I always make post status to be the kind of conservative wars of WordPress, but I apologise, post status. I don't mean it. I just do it to tease them. Actually, it's just pure jealousy. So there we go. But I think one of the factors is that you always meet a very diverse crowd at WordCamps, don't you? Where more kind of trade showish. They tend to be of a similar type, but one of the things I noticed with WordCamps is you do meet all sorts. Some totally bonkers, but you also meet some very smart people. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. You meet like people from all over the world. So here's an example. I was at WordCampUSA, and I was walking by, and there was these couches there. There was this lounge area, by where the food was, and people were talking about headless WordPress, and I've heard about headless WordPress, and they were walking by, they're like, hey, we're having a conversation about headless WordPress. You want to join? I'm like, I have no idea what headless WordPress is.
Oh, you know what it is?
Any idea? But I said I will join your conversation if you don't mind somebody just listening. So I hung out with those guys. They explained to me what headless WordPress is. They were talking about some things, and I learned that. I could not have learned that anywhere else because that I was gonna have people there explaining to a complete novice about that kind of stuff exactly what it was, and I was able to ask questions. So you use it like this, and so great. And so there were some really, really smart people, like just breaking down something very complex to a complete noob like me. So really generous, really happy, really passionate to talk about it. So, those are the kind of WordPress experiences. I mean, WordCamp experiences that are just priceless.
So to wrap up our little interview, a spontaneous, because I never was generous, I booked to have a chat with him, and then I kind of sprung at him about a couple of hours ago that he would do it, but he was up for it.
I'm always up for things.
Yeah. What do you see as some of the challenges facing the agency owner in the next year, 18 months? Are there any trends, anything new? Is it become more difficult to make a decent living as an agency, digital website, marketing provider, or are there new opportunities?
Yes.
Only a small question.
So,
I'm notorious for these enormous questions, I might add.
So I will tell you what I see the biggest challenge facing agency owners right now is inflation. Because we've lived in an environment where we haven't had inflation for 40 years. Okay. And we like there's very few of anybody in WordPress right now that has ever lived through an inflationary environment, because you'd have to be well into your 60s, and then you'd only be in your 20s if that, because that was mean you're like, because the last inflationary period was in the 70s. So being that, costs are increasing much more fast, and this goes back to understanding our costs. So if we don't understand our costs and they creeped up on us over a couple years, that's easier to deal with. But if we don't understand our costs and they're rising at like 10, 15, 20, 25% in 6 months to a year, that could easily kill our profits. So we could end up with having because even though we're teetering on a recession, business is still good in a lot of areas. So we could end up having the best year we've ever had and making by far the least we've ever made, because we're getting a lot of business in, but we're not paying attention to our costs. We're keeping our pricing and everything like that the same. So inflation's killed our profit. Our revenue is great, but our profit's bad. So that's where I think the speed of inflation, the speed of business right now is, I think, the biggest risk to agency owners right now. Opportunities. So I think when you have turbulent times in the economy, it's the times when there is the absolute most opportunity to do something big and do something different. So, and if you look back at 2008, all the tech companies that we take for granted, like Uber, Instagram, Pinterest, Slack, all those started in the last recession. You look back at even Walt Disney, the ultimate consumer company, the ultimate company that you would go and spend money on when things were when you had extra money to spend, was actually started during the Great Depression. So I think there's huge opportunities to be had no matter what happens with the economy. But again, you have to go back to understanding your costs and not being around to take advantage of those opportunities.
Well, I'm not trying to be funny here, but I do wonder, because of the pandemic and other factors, look at housing, other sectors, they went up by over a 3-year period by over 40%. What do you think's going to happen? You only have to look at things in any historical context. When you have markets going up by 20%, if they go up by more than 2 years, you'll be lucky before there's a major correction.
Yeah, it's the economy goes up and down, and you just, so you have to do that. So it's like we're another, like, we're not going to live, like, we're going to live the rest of our lives having, like, seeing 6, 7, 8 recessions. So we just have to just get used to that. But we want to prepare for the inevitable. But if you look at the historic trends, the recessions are, just blips on graphs. I've actually done some course. I'm actually redoing my course I did a couple years ago that just show that, when you look at these major events in, like, over time, they don't look that major, and the economy the market, everything has been up. So over time, it's just,
Well, it's difficult, isn't it, just to finish off, because the only thing that Ronnie Reagan ever said that I agreed with was he did come out with this comment. He said a recession is when your neighbour gets sacked. A depression is when you get sacked. You had a point there, didn't he?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to wrap it up. We've got some more guests that I'll be talking to during today. And thanks for coming on board. I think it's been an interesting discussion. And I'm going to continue the discussion offline. We'll be back in about an hour. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
See you. Alrighty.